Hey folks, hope you're all having a good night. I just want to take a few seconds. This is a little bit out of the normal schedule, but something pretty interesting happened in the last, I would say, 2 days. Apple is actually going to allow you to respond to negative or positive App Store reviews. That's kind of a big deal because traditionally, if you got an App Store review on the Apple App Store, you were kind of beat, right? There's no good way to respond. You can't get the customer's contact information. You can't even publicly respond and say, "Hey, did you check this out?" And there's a lot of cases where you might want to. Let me give you a pretty simple example. Maybe, like a lot of people, you do an update to your app about once a year, 18 months, 2 years, and change the user flow, right? A lot of companies do this. A lot of our clients at Buccaneer do this because they want the app to feel fresh. If they're user facing, they don't want their customers to feel like, the app's the same old, same old. But some users get lost in the new UX, right? Some users aren't, super technically savvy and just have a hard time. This is particularly true during UI transitions for the platform. If we think back to, let's say, iOS 7, which changed the UI significantly, or if you're adding new functionality, or in particular, less than, obvious interfaces, right? Swipe interfaces, things like that. A lot of times users get frustrated, and, well, what do, right? They're unlikely to contact your support, even if you have it in app, which you should. You should always have in-app support, at the very least an email link for them to click that should just bring up a form in the app and let them give you some feedback. The reality is almost nobody's going to fill that out, but that is a way to stop some level of one-star reviews. Sadly, the reality is most people who have that kind of issue with the new user flow are just going to go write a one-star review, and over time that affects your App Store ranking because ratings are a way that Apple, ranks apps in the store for search. And also other users may not want to use your app or service if they see a bunch of one-star reviews. They may decide to go to your competitor, which nobody wants that, right? Keep your competitor's app on the bottom of the chart. Now you can respond. Now you can say, thank you for, your concern, and actually walk them through. Because more often than not, it's either a bug that you're fixing in an update that's pending app review. It's a bug you're not aware of, which is probably the worst case scenario. Then you need to get on that, either with your internal developers or your contractors or whoever works on your app. Or it's like that case I just discussed, right, where it's a new user flow or a modified user experience, and the user in question just didn't quite get the transition. So it's a great opportunity to walk them through it. Now, there's a few do's and don'ts here, and the great thing is actually Google on the Android platform has allowed developers to respond to app reviews on the Google Play Store for some time now. I mean, it's been a while. It's a common thing. Actually, at Buccaneer, we do offer a service where we, as part of App Store optimization, we will manage your App Store reviews for you on the Google Play Store. And we found that there's just a few simple things you can do. All right, here we go. We're going to do top 4. Number 1, always respond. I can only think of 1 or 2 cases where you don't respond. And those are, probably cases where you're going to want to flag it as spam or contact somebody at Apple or Google, and they're pretty good about not letting like derogatory or, outlandishly insulting things on their review charts, right? In general, you always want to respond because even if you can't win the customer back, you don't want the only story to be their side of the story, because future customers may look at those reviews, read that, and say, well, this customer had this problem. And this is particularly around billing issues or things like that. You always, always, always want to respond. Your enterprises, you may be familiar with the Better Business Bureau. One mistake I made a long time ago was always have to respond to reviews. Even if they're nonsense, even if they're, let me give you a nightmare scenario. We had one customer who, an ex-employee, went online and, one-starred their app and the Google Play Store and wrote horrible things. That's a case where you have to respond, and then you go ahead and you report it to the platform managers, so Apple or Google, respectively. The key is not to get angry, right? I know this is a little tough. You've invested all this money in an app. You have X thousands of users, right? Everybody's happy, and there's always this one guy who's just unhappy, or, God forbid, it's a disgruntled former employee. Terrible. But still, the old adage stays, always respond professionally and courteously. Don't ask them to modify their review, even if you solve the problem. Because again, most people aren't crazy, right? Most people who are going to write a negative app review, it's because Now, they just had a hard time and they didn't get it. And maybe there was a legitimate bug and you need to fix it, right? Help them, but don't directly ask them to modify the review. It seems in our findings, and other shops have found this too, that you're actually more likely to get a user to modify their Google Play review, which we're assuming this is all going to carry over to the iOS App Store, right? The way it worked in Google Play. If you don't directly ask for it, if you just give the, and you should, right? Your goal should be to help the customer, the user, not to necessarily, fix your App Store rating. But a good side effect of that is you will help your App Store rating if you can actually resolve the issue they have. So that's kind of how you want to do that. You don't want to be limiting yourself to what you can do in a response, though. It's really a good idea to give a name, give a support number, give a support email, something like that. I've talked to a lot of managers who, working with the Google Play Store, have been a little nervous about giving out a phone number. They're afraid about getting spammy sales calls or whatever. Always give a phone number, especially if you're on that enterprise side, especially if your app is either, it is a view into your existing service, it is business facing, or it, as its own product, takes in a lot of money, right? If you're charging, and this is a lot of money in App Store terms, so, we could be talking $50. We don't want to feel like we're some amorphous shape somewhere, right? Some kid in a garage just typing out a response on a message board. You really want to give them a number to call, an email to follow up with, and if you can, take that offline and put that into your normal customer service flow. The idea is that now App Store responses should become part of your normal customer service flow, or again, you can outsource it to a firm like Buccaneer. So that's kind of the long and short of it. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for a lot of you. Of course, we all hope that we all only have 5 stars and we never have to worry about this. But the reality is, you're changing user flows, you're doing all these things. There is going to be some user somewhere who's not exactly thrilled. So it's super important to respond. And I'd also ask you to check out below. We are still doing our free hybrid app evaluation. If you just go to buccaneer.io, fill out a form there, and just let us know you saw the video, and that's free for you. We evaluate if your app should be hybrid. If so, what type of hybrid we think would work, and the advantages and disadvantages of that. And that's totally free for you. Thank you so much. Have a great night now.